Welcome back to the LCI podcast. My name is Justin, one of the hosts here on the LCI podcast. As we step into 2026, we want to take a moment to look back at 2025, a year filled with powerful conversations, honest testimonies, and faith-centered discussions that challenged us, encouraged us, and helped us grow. Today's episode is all about reflecting on where we've been and celebrating what God did through the LCI podcast over the past year. Let's take a look back at our 2025 recaps. We began 2025 by talking about more than just goals and habits. In episode 22, Miranda Sullivan, myself, and Joseph Gleaves explored how faith should shape our resolutions. Instead of chasing self-improvement alone, we focused on surrender, obedience, and aligning our plans with God's purpose for the year.
So I don't know if you've ever heard either, but I've heard people talk about their, eulogy, I think is how you pronounce it.
Okay.
Like what they want the end of their life to look like and then how they get to be that person. You
Wow.
know?
Okay.
So like almost like step by step, how do I get there? And it, but the thing too, you got to look at is like the timeline of like how long realistically is this going to take me from where I am now, and just like bit by bit, like first I need to accomplish this small goal, then this small goal, then this small goal. And I'm like getting closer and closer to the big thing,
Right. And being really honest with yourself, your capability.
You know what you can
what
do.
you can take on. That's a hard thing.
Yeah.
Being like, I can't really, I would love to say I'm going to read my Bible and pray and my devotion time is going to be 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've built my life where that's not there.
You don't do 3 hours a day?
But I think if that's something that I want to do,
100%.
then I need to break that down and say, okay, what are you doing right now? What does that look like?
Yep. In episode 23, Miranda Sullivan sat down and joined Felicia Buck, Jessica Vigil, and Melissa Compton for an honest conversation about motherhood. Looking back, this episode captured the beauty, exhaustion, pressure, and grace involved in raising children while balancing faith, family, and everyday responsibilities. Check it out.
And social media does play a big part in that. Everybody shows their perfect life. And so then we see that and want to have this perfect life and feel like we're failing all the time.
Right.
And most of the time you're not. You're doing very well.
I love that. You're enough. You are enough. We focus so much on wanting to be that perfect mother. We lose who is important to us. And what I mean by that is the me that's important, is the real me.
Right.
Not the, I want to be like Jess. There's a lot of reasons I want to be like you, but I have to understand that I can't.
Yeah.
I can learn from you and I can learn values from you. I can learn from you. I can learn from you. And I have taken things from you and thought, that's kind of nice. I like how they do that. I'm going to do that, But at the end of the day, I am me. Felicia's Felicia, Missy's Missy, Jess is Jess. And when we can embrace ourselves, then all of a sudden, I think it's easier to juggle. Okay, so let's see if we can count it all. So church activities, outside kid activities, outside of school. Then we've got school, personal, stuff. You got to take care of yourself, and have some you time every now and then. And then, for the four of us, we all have spouses. So that's important too. And if you don't have spouses, then that's a whole nother dynamic to motherhood, is either co-parenting with somebody that's not a spouse to you or having a blended family. So there's just a lot going on.
Episode 24 took us into the intersection of faith and business. Ryan Compton, Ashley Loring, Jeremiah Vigil, and myself shared what it's like to own and operate businesses with integrity, biblical values, and reliance on God while navigating real-world challenges. Check it out.
And I think you have to rely on God even more heavily, not just in the times where things are not as great, but especially when things are in a surplus. Because I think the true tell of a person, a woman or a man, is what you're doing when you're on cloud nine, when you're on the top,
right?
When you don't so-called need God to, help you out.
Yes.
And so you really got to rely on God to like keep you focused, keep you in line. And I think, it's an everyday thing.
That's good. Episode 25, handling the busy. In episode 25, Miranda, myself, and Joseph addressed the reality of busyness in our culture. This conversation reminded us that being busy doesn't always mean being productive, and that rest, boundaries, and intentional living are essential parts of a Christ-centered life. And one of those things that I've learned over the years, especially when we got the two children, the two foster children, I mean, we went from, just my wife and I within a day to all of a sudden now we have two little ones that we're raising full-time in the house, everything like that. So that was definitely a shocker. We had to change some things when it came to being busy, because we thought we were busy before, and then we realized, oh no, we're not busy at all. Now we're busy, and then exactly. Children do that to you. But I think just knowing your limits and being realistic with yourself, because there's times where I feel like I can just keep going, keep adding, and then
that's true.
There's times where my wife was like, hey, how about we find some areas where you can relax on a little bit. And I'm a very ambitious person, so I always have a million things I want to add to accomplish, like I want to get better, I want to run every day, and then on top of that, I want to write another book, or on top of that, I want to start a video series, or on top of that, I want to do all this. I'm just one of those type of people. But you just have to prioritize. Know your limits, prioritize, really know how it's affecting you and how it's affecting those around you, and if it's going to affect them negatively and it's going to add too much stress on your life. I mean, there's too many things in life to stress about. You don't need to add more to it.
100%.
And so that's just my 2 cents. It's bad habits that usually speak a lot louder, but it's the good habits when they're nailed down and they're implemented in your life that will do great things for you.
Your structure.
Yeah. So
I think that's good. Your foundation.
That's
Episode
good. 26, Depression Doesn't Define Me. It was one of our most impactful conversations of 2025. Miranda Sullivan sat down with Isabella Gleaves and Brianna Walters, bravely sharing their experience with mental health, reminding listeners that depression does not define who we are. Our identity is found in Christ. Check it out.
Actually, somebody that lives there in Tennessee, she had no idea what I was going through, but she sent me the most encouraging text saying she was praying for me, saying she had a burden for me. And I remember being in the hallway and just crying, because when you're in that moment, in those moments, it feels like God is so distant. You feel so alone, and you feel like, God, where are you? I called your name, you're supposed to heal me, and what's wrong with me? But then God shows himself through people, through other people, right?
Yes.
So I would receive texts like that, even people from here that had no idea what I was going through, that would just text me saying, hey, I'm praying for you. Hey, I love you. And when I would get those texts, I would share it with my husband, and I'd be like God is clearly in this. And that would be so encouraging. So I would encourage people that are listening to this, if you ever feel impressed, to text somebody a word of encouragement,
Go ahead,
or even
girl.
go up to them and speak a word of encouragement. Do it. Even if you think you're going to look silly or goofy, or, even if you think oh, maybe this isn't God, an encouraging word never fails.
Episode 27, Modern Day Idols. Episode 27 challenged us to examine what we place first in our lives. Miranda sat down with Joseph in this episode to discuss modern day idols like success, comfort, control, and social media, calling us back to wholehearted devotion and putting God above all else. Check it out.
Because I have to make money,
Yeah,
you have to make
live.
money to survive. And then so anytime you feel guilty about thinking about money or bills or trying to make more money, it's an easy out to just be like, well, I have to, right?
I have
to do it to survive.
Yes.
And I agree, you do have to make money, or you can't survive, but you also can't make that an excuse. And honestly, if we're being transparent, I think every person probably has a certain one on this list that they're like, oh yeah, that's the one that I struggle with, And for me, I would say it's money, because my family grew up middle class. We weren't wealthy or anything, but I always dreamt of having a certain house or a certain vehicle or whatever. And something I've learned along the way, whenever I got this truck that I always wanted a few years ago, I was like, oh yeah, if I get this, I'm gonna be happy, right?
Oh, okay.
And if you think, oh, if I get that, I'm gonna be happy, and it's always a chase. It's always a chase.
Oh, that's so good. It
and
is a chase.
When I got that truck, I was like, oh, well, I want to do this thing to it or that thing to it to make it even better. And so Yeah, I just realized, and I even heard it from a friend recently who makes good money. He's like, yeah, I realized that all the material possessions that I got, because he has like house, vehicles, camper, all these things that he bought. He's like, I realized that none of it really satisfied,
Yeah.
Episode 28, Marriage and Relationships. In episode 28, Miranda Sullivan sat down with Stephen Sullivan, myself, and Michaela Hutchinson, and we reflected on marriage and relationships. This episode emphasized communication, commitment, and faith, and reminded us that healthy relationships require intentional effort and a Christ-centered foundation. Check it out.
But I think we came into a scenario a few years into marriage where we were both just I was so consumed with what I was doing in the church. I was very, very busy all of the time. And at that time in our lives, he wasn't involved in the music department, and I was running a music department, and then he was running a youth department. And it became life. And it wasn't until storms came that for me, I was like, oh, I haven't been working on this for years. I just assumed because we had such we dated all through high school. We had so much fun. We were best friends. It was just easy.
Episode 29 highlighted the call to live missionally. Terry Boffman and Gayla Boffman, our lead pastors here at LifeChurch, joined me as they shared their testimony and their story of the mission field, and encouraged us to look beyond ourselves and recognize the power of obedience and global reach of the gospel. Check it out.
To have the text read in Spanish.
Right.
That's kind of leading us. We're wanting to start this Spanish ministry or bilingual service.
Absolutely.
Whatever shape it takes. But right now it's kind of raising that profile. Case in point, this week we had a guest, first-time guest, a couple. I met them outside. The man was primarily Spanish-speaking. He understood some, but his wife interpreted quite a bit for him. And they said they loved the missions emphasis.
Wow.
Of course, this happened to be Mission Sunday.
Yeah, perfect time.
They loved that, and they loved when of course, we had one of the young men come up and interpret the text, but also I mentioned that we wanted to start a Spanish-speaking service, and she said, "Oh, we want to be a part of that."
That's awesome.
So first-time guests,
That's awesome.
that connected with them because that they are a bilingual couple.
Interest.
I
that's
think
awesome.
I think God is just kind of reaffirming to me that this is the direction to go, and we need to address this need in our community.
Episode 30, the importance of Bible reading. In episode 30, Miranda, Joseph, and myself reminded us why Scripture is essential. This episode encouraged consistent Bible reading as the foundation for spiritual growth, wisdom, and deeper relationship with God.
How do you go on a trip without knowing where you're going? We always. Well, I grew up hearing, it's a map for you. Then it does say, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." And so, when you are on a journey, you move. Hebrews talks about we run the race. We move forward, we progress forward, and so there is no stagnancy in truly moving forward in our relationship with Christ. And so, we have to have something to help us through. I mean, it's difficult. Life is hard. You get thrown all kinds of things. And so to know that you have something that has proven the test of time, it has been time and time again questioned and proven, over and over again. And to know that 4,000 years or so over the span of this book, and it is completely coinciding with one another. The stories make sense, everything makes sense. So essential, yes, because without it, we are lost. We have no map, if you will, to get us from point A to point B in this journey of life.
Episode 31, Standing on Faith. Episode 31 focused on what it means to stand firm in faith, especially during uncertain seasons. Myself and Miranda shared insights on trusting God through trials, waiting seasons, and moments when faith requires perseverance. Check it out. And I think to be encouraging about this, to understand who God is and that He works all things for the good, those that love Him and want to do His works. And so I honestly feel like there has been, although this has been a tragic moment and there's a lot of strife in the world, I think that it brought a lot of attention to why it happened, and really who God is. And we can kind of dive a little bit into that. But I think going back to the social media, it is such a trying time because, I didn't get a phone until I was 14, a little Nokia brick phone. And that thing did not have social media.
No, they didn't.
The coolest thing it had was Snake. And you can get that snake to go eat the little dots. And that was about it.
Quick question. Was your Nokia in color?
No, black and white.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It was like gray, the gray pixelated.
Yeah, but then I had a BlackBerry for a year with the keyboard. And then I went to the Razor Flip. And I had the Razor Flip skinny one. And that
I had
was
the
the
black
coolest
Razor
thing.
Flip. I thought that was so cool because everybody else had the silver one.
Okay, yeah. But it wasn't until later before social media was really introduced. When I had the iPhone, and Instagram became a thing. And I started getting on that. But even back then, it was such a just put your picture up there, help you get enough likes, and that was about it. It wasn't a form of news. It wasn't a form of.
There was no such thing as reels.
Yeah.
That wasn't what Instagram was about. It wasn't until really TikTok came on the scene.
Yeah.
I don't know all of my social media history. Someone might call me out right now.
Yeah.
But what I seem to think is, they wanted to compete. And so, YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, you can tell I'm old. Those are the only ones I know.
Yeah.
Are saying, oh, well, if TikTok's getting to be a big thing, we need to have these short videos,
Sure. And I think it became to a point to where everything is so available to all generations. Like I remember I was very young when 9/11 happened, very young. But I remember I didn't know about it. They had a moment of silence in school, but I didn't know about it till I got home. My parents told me what was going on.
Yeah.
I had no idea to find that out on my phone. I unfortunately saw what happened on that day with Charlie Kirk on just scrolling through my phone, and it hit me heavy. And I'm thinking to myself, anyone could have seen that.
Yeah, and so many people
did. And it affects
did.
So many people did. And I'm wondering, with our generation, younger generation growing up with social media, that can build a lot of effect on you.
Yeah.
And so I think this idea of fear and what this world can bring when it comes to gaining information real time of what's going on, and just maybe fake news or the AI that's getting so popular nowadays. And it can be a lot. Episode 32, What It Means to Lead. Myself and Miranda unpacked biblical leadership, emphasizing servant leadership, humility, and influence rooted in Christ-like character, rather than position or title. Check it out.
That's him.
Right.
And so I think we all in leadership come to that moment, especially if we're called to pastor or called to preach.
Sure.
And so I look at us in similar ways, because I see you, and I can only imagine the fear as an introvert, knowing that God wants you to lead my people.
Yeah, right,
whatever that
exactly.
might look like in each season. And likewise, just because of tradition, how weird it was for me to hear God say, I'm calling you to preach. And I'm thinking, but most of the preachers I know are not women.
Yeah.
Sure. there were a few that I really looked to, Joy Haney, Nona Freeman, growing up. And so I just clung to that, thinking, okay, it's not unheard of, but it's not just, I can't just fly under the radar. So a little bit of my introvert, comes through. I'd like to just not be seen and not be noticed. So I feel like I can kind of connect with maybe that fear that you had. Maybe fear is a strong word.
Yeah, there was definitely fearful at times. But I would say that that's one of the benefits of having such a wonderful leader as Pastor Boffin, who looks at us and encourages us to grow our own ministry and to grow it in the kingdom, and to be a part of LifeChurch, but really take leadership and take accountability for your role. And I mean, it's always a running joke in my mind, like we have 1 billion pastors here at LifeChurch, but honestly I feel like that's a testament to pastor, to look
Most
at
definitely.
it and seeing that there are callings on people's lives, and that he doesn't want to ignore that, and he wants to allow that to take hold and grow. And I think that's really what he did for me. And so I am a testament obviously to God and what he did in my life, but also I'm a testament to what Pastor put faith in and helped grow. And so,
Yeah.
you know, obviously I appreciate that as leadership. And I think that's something that we as leaders should do for others as well. You know, I
Yes.
think back to our student pastor days and looking back at all those who, you know, now are adults, have children, you know, and
Yes, they do.
you look at that and you're like,
Or they're
wow.
the youth leaders
Exactly.
or student pastors
Yeah.
now, and you're thinking,
Yeah.
oh, they're leading my kids.
Right. But
That's
then,
amazing.
But then you look back at it and you're like, well, you know, I had a portion of the responsibility to that. Like I had some hand in that. And that was because you didn't, you know, look at them and discourage their calling. You didn't look at them and say, oh, you aren't talented enough to do this. Or, you know, if they felt the call and God was really calling them to do something, you look at them and you're like, you just don't have the personality for that. Like,
Oh,
you don't,
never, yeah.
Yeah. But like, I look at that and I say, Pastor didn't do that with me. Obviously, it took like 3-4 weeks for me to say a word to Pastor when I was visiting here at LifeChurch. But that didn't deter him. And so I feel like leadership is to grow and to minister to others, but it's also to create other leaders and to, you know, create other disciples and build the
Exactly.
kingdom of God. And so it's a task, and it can be overbearing at times, but I think that's one of the benefits we have over the professional sense, you know, company and owners that have no relationship with God, yet they have the weight of their company on their shoulders and they have to lead. When we have God on our side and a relationship with him that we can lean on, it's such a great benefit when it comes to leadership. So we close 2025 with episode 33, and it's centered on fatherhood. Jeremiah, Joseph, and myself discussed responsibility and privilege of fatherhood, highlighting the lasting impact godly fathers have on their families and future generations. Check it out. You know, I'm 4 years old.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm older, you know?
Yeah.
But I still, if I had a question, or even if it wasn't anything big, like some big decision in my life, like it was like, how do you fix a weed whacker? You know,
Yeah.
I would call him because I knew I could call my dad.
call him,
and
little
he was
things
open
like
with
that.
conversation.
Yeah.
You know, at least, you know, that's what you kind of strive for.
Well, that's so scary. Like, so earlier this year, you know, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and you know, thank God, you know, he's healed and things are looking good. But
Yeah.
you know, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, okay, well, one day I might lose him.
Right.
Okay. And so many people that I know have lost their fathers, and you know, you don't want to take for granted that, okay, dad's always available. You know, so I'll be 44 this week, and so, you know, and even as a 44-year-old, you still want to have that dad to be there to answer your call, and he's still the voice that's kind of in the back of your head, kind of like a conscience, saying, okay, would he do this, or how would he approach that kind of thing? And you want your kids to have that too.
100%.
That authority but safe place. Like I said, you know, you want when they're doing something wrong, I don't want them to be like, I gotta hide it from my dad either. You know, I want to be like, I need to go ask dad what I would do. You know, man, I messed up. Call dad. You know, I don't want them to be like, let's hide this. You know, and you know, God forbid, you know, we ever lose, you know, my dad or anything like that, and then I become the patriarch. You know.
Yeah.
But you know, I want that voice to be in my kids' head, you know, even when they're adults with their own kids too, and in a good way. I don't want to be like a narcissist where I'm controlling them and being a helicopter parent, even in their adulthood life, right?
Yeah.
So, but you still want it to be where there's that gentleness, where like, okay, I can call dad.
As we reflect on 2025, we're grateful for every guest, every conversation, and every listener who supported the LCI podcast throughout the year. Looking back, these episodes reminded us that faith applies to every area of our life: family, work, leadership, struggles, and purpose. The LCI podcast is growing, conversations are growing deeper, and God is opening doors for new voices and bold topics that will continue to challenge and strengthen your faith. Thank you for being part of the LCI podcast family. Stay connected, because what God is doing next through the podcast is just getting started. Thank you so much for joining us on the LCI podcast.
If you liked what you heard here today, please follow us. YouTube is LifeChurch Presents. You can also follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Thank you, and God bless.